Part 122. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1211. Chapter 1211, There will be time to cultivate a good relationship between mother and daughter in the future. After hearing what she said, Mrs. Bai's eyes lit up, she held her hand tightly, and said excitedly, "Then if it were you, would you be willing to forgive me?" Huh? Chiao Mian was stunned. Mian, Auntie wants to know what you really think. If you were my Kakai, would you still be willing to recognize me? Don't say nice things to comfort me, just tell me what you really think. Auntie wants to hear what you really think. Thought. Mrs. Bai was naturally very happy to be able to recognize her biological daughter. But she was also worried because her daughter refused to recognize her. She was worried that her Kakai would blame her for giving her away. What if Kakai cannot accept her difficulties and explanation? After Mrs. Bai finished asking, she looked at Chiao Mian nervously, like a student who had just been questioned by the teacher and didn't know whether his answer was right or wrong. He was nervous and anxious until the teacher responded. She looked serious and nervous as she waited for her answer, which made Chiao Mian, who had planned to say something nice to comfort her, slowly swallow the words that were on her lips. She could see that Mrs. Bai really wanted to know what she really thought. With Mrs. Bai like this, Chiao Mian felt uncomfortable and could not reply to her casually. So this time, she thought seriously for a while before replying, "I don't know." Then let's see what the reason was for giving me away in the first place. Madame Bai's heart tightened and she took a deep breath. What if it's for her safety? It would be dangerous to take her with her, and she might lose her life, so in order to protect her, she was given away. Woolen cloth. Looking back on what happened back then, Mrs. Bai felt sad and sad. She really had no choice back then. How dare she let her baby take risks with her when she doesn't even know if her own life can be saved? Sending her away would at least save her life, even if it could not protect her lifelong prosperity. Can her baby understand her helplessness and pain? Chiao Mian thought seriously for a moment before replying, "If that's the case, I think it's understandable. It's just." After hearing what she said, Mrs. Mo just breathed a sigh of relief. Because of her heart immediately started to hang up again, and she asked nervously, "It's just what?" "It's just that I think even if she can understand it, it shouldn't be possible for her to accept it immediately. After all, she has been separated from you for more than 10 years. Although you are her closest blood relatives according to blood relationship, after all, there is no having lived together, they are almost like strangers to her." Is that so? Mrs. Bai felt that her mood was like riding a roller coaster when she was young, rising and falling. Happiness sometimes, sadness sometimes. She is anxious to get her daughter back, but she has various worries in her heart. "Auntie, this is just my opinion. Maybe your daughter has different ideas than mine." Seeing Mrs. Bai's mood sinking, Chiao Mian felt that she had said something wrong again. Mian, thank you for talking to my aunt so much." Mrs. Bai looked at Chiao Mian's uneasy look as if she had done the most wrong thing, and sighed softly in her heart. She still can't be too hasty. Now that we have clues, we are just waiting for confirmation. If it is confirmed that Chiao Mian is really her daughter, there will be time to cultivate a good relationship between mother and daughter. Anyway, she will spend all the rest of her life making up for her daughter. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1212. Chapter 1212. Let's fulfill my aunt's wish, okay? Auntie, you are too polite. I didn't do anything. If I said something that made my aunt unhappy, I hope she won't take it to heart. How could it be? Oh, after talking for so long, you must be very hungry. Mrs. Bai took Chiao Mian's hand and said warmly, Tell Auntie what you want to eat. But, Aunt, can you just fulfill my aunt's wish? I have always wanted to cook a meal for my daughter, but... Mrs. Bai said, her eyes turning red. Auntie, don't be sad. If you can, just cook me a bowl of noodles. Chiao Mian was originally embarrassed to ask Mrs. Bai to cook for her. However, when she heard Mrs. Bai say that she wanted to cook a meal for her daughter, she suddenly felt a little sad and hurriedly nodded and agreed. Noodles, just a bowl of noodles. Well, I just want to eat some noodles now. In fact, she didn't want to trouble Mrs. Bai too much. Okay, just wait, I'll do it for you right away. Mrs. Bai turned around and happily went to cook noodles for her. Chiao Mian originally thought that it was impossible for a pampered lady like Mrs. Bai to know how to cook. She thought that as long as Mrs. Bai could cook the noodles, it would be good. Unexpectedly, more than 10 minutes later, Mrs. Bai actually made a bowl of seafood noodles that looked very good. The noodles are very nutritious and color matched, and they look very appetizing. Mian, the noodles are ready. Try it and see how it tastes. I haven't cooked for a while, so I don't know if my cooking skills have deteriorated. I can't guarantee anything else, but I can still cook a bowl of noodles. Mrs. Bai placed the cooked noodles on the dining table and watched Chiao Mian pick up the chopsticks with an expectant expression on her face. Chiao Mian slowly took a bite of noodles under her expectant gaze. How is it? Is it delicious? Mrs. Bai asked immediately. Yeah, it's delicious, Chiao Mian said and took another bite. She was really surprised. She didn't expect that Mrs. Bai not only cooked the noodles, but also cooked them so deliciously. The craftsmanship is definitely not bad. It can even be called very good. This bowl of seafood noodles is even more delicious than what she eats outside. Is it really delicious? Mrs. Bai's eyes lit up, her cooking skills were affirmed, and she felt much happier. Well, it's really delicious, Chiao Mian said truthfully. It's better than many seafood noodles I've eaten before. Auntie, I didn't expect that your cooking skills are so good. Auntie went to learn it specially. After Mrs. Bai saw that she was not saying polite words, she became even happier. She rolled her eyes and smiled. I have learned it before. I learned it for your uncle when I was young. You know, they all say they want to catch a man's heart must first be captured by his stomach, so I learned all the dishes your uncle likes to eat. Later on, I learned to like cooking. Now I occasionally cook by myself, but because your uncle is still working abroad and rarely comes back now, I rarely cook. Mrs. Bai added, eat it while it's hot. The seafood noodles will become fishy when they are cold and won't taste good. Chiao Mian nodded and ate the noodles seriously. Mrs. Bai was sitting next to her, watching her eating the noodles she made bit by bit, feeling extremely satisfied in her heart. She said gently, Mian, if you like to eat the noodles made by Aunt, you can come over and let Aunt cook it for you. Auntie can also cook a lot of dishes, and I can slowly cook them for you in the future. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1213. Chapter 1213, a little disappointed and a little sad. She said gently, Mian, if you like to eat the noodles made by Aunt, you can come over and let Aunt cook it for you. Auntie can also cook a lot of dishes, and I can slowly cook them for you in the future. Chiao Mian felt that Mrs. Bai saw that she looked like her daughter and transferred some of her feelings towards her daughter to her. She couldn't help but think of Bai Yisheng. That's why Bai Yisheng is so kind to her. Feeling that she looked like his sister when he was a child, he, like Mrs. Bai, transferred his feelings to her. So, if the daughter of the Bai family is really found, will she still be treated like this in the future? There must be no more. Thinking of this, Chiao Mian couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Although these are human things, she can understand even if Bai Yusheng and Mrs. Bai will not treat her as well as they do now. However, I still feel a little lost and sad. Perhaps it was because she felt the warmth of home from the Bai family and the happiness of being loved by her family, so she hoped that this warmth and love could continue forever. Only those who fear and care about losing. Oh, you kid is just too thin. If you had the time and opportunity, it would be great if you moved to my place. Then, my aunt will give you a good dose of health, and I'll make sure you're gone in less than a month. Raised to be fat and white. Chiao Mian is not very thin and has a relatively standard figure. But in the eyes of Mrs. Bai and her generation, they think she is too thin. I feel very distressed for Mrs. Bai. The noodles cooked by Mrs. Bai were delicious, and Chiao Mian was also hungry, so she quickly finished a bowl of noodles. Looking at the empty bowl, Mrs. Bai felt extremely satisfied. Mian, are you full? If not, my aunt will make something else for you. Auntie, I'm full. Chiao Mian knew that Mrs. Bai was probably overly maternal now, so she quickly said, I'm very full. Thank you, Auntie, for cooking me this bowl of noodles. Why are you so polite? Mrs. Bai reached out and touched her head, then took her hand and said in a friendly tone, in front of my aunt, you should treat it as if you were in front of your own family. Don't be polite to me. The banquet should start now, let's go out, let's see. Good. Asterisk. As soon as Madame Bai pulled Chiao Mian out of the kitchen, she saw Shenro walking towards them. And Chiao Angzan. Aunt Bai. Shenro held a glass of red wine in her hand and walked up to Mrs. Bai with a smile. She ignored Chiao Mian beside Madame Bai and said directly to Madame Bai, Aunt Bai, I was just looking for you to toast you. Although today is Brother Bai's birthday party, today is also your Good Friday, Aunt Bai. In the world, every mother is great. 30 years ago, you worked so hard to give birth to Brother Bai. You are the greatest mother, Aunt Bai, and I give you this cup. Shenro looked sincere and spoke sincerely. After speaking, she raised her glass to Mrs. Bai. Generally on days like this, most people go to congratulate and wish the birthday person. Mrs. Bai didn't expect that Shenro would think that today was her Good Friday and come here to pay her respects. Mrs. Bai was moved by what she just said. She had a good impression of Shenro in the first place, and now she feels that she is even more sensible. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1214. Chapter 1214 An Xin, your skirt is stained. She immediately called a waiter and got a glass of wine. Rura is such a sensible child. Your mother is so lucky to have a filial and sensible daughter like you. Mrs. Bai took the wine, made a gesture of clinking glasses with her, and said with a smile, that's not true. To think that some people will remember that today is my Good Friday. You are so considerate. I feel sorry for myself again. Such a good girl, why doesn't that in her family like her? It would be great if I could marry her and take her home as my wife. Mrs. Bai, I'd like to toast you too. A weak voice sounded. Under Madame Bai's slightly surprised gaze, Chiao Angzan pursed her lips, raised her glass and said softly, you have suffered. Iffies. Chiao Mian almost couldn't hold back her laughter. Shenro said these words to Mrs. Bai because the Bai family and the Shen family have a relationship. If she said this, Mrs. Bai would think she was sensible. But what's going on with Chiao Angzan? She suddenly ran out to propose a toast, which seemed abrupt and funny. It was really out of place. Looking at Mrs. Bai's reaction at this time, this can be well confirmed. Mrs. Bai must have not expected that she would do this. She was stunned for several seconds and frowned slightly. She looked at Jiao Angzhen and said nothing. Jiao Angzhen just held up the wine glass, and the expression on his face became more and more stiff as Mrs. Bai remained silent. Mrs. Bai didn't want to pay attention to her at all. As soon as she thinks of Jiao Mian being offended by her, she wants to expel Jiao Angzhen from the Bai family immediately. Danren was brought here by Shenro. Even though Mrs. Bai felt uncomfortable and no matter how much she disliked Jiao Angzhen, she didn't do anything too embarrassing for everyone. After she was silent for a few seconds, although she ignored Jiao Angzhen, she still raised her glass. Shenro immediately gave Jiao Angzhen a wink. Jiao Angzhen received her gaze and squeezed the wine glass tightly. Her eyes flashed and she took a deep breath. When she was drinking wine, her hand shook and more than half of the glass of red wine spilled onto her long milk tea-colored dress that did not look dirty. Ah! Jiao Angzhen covered her mouth and shouted. What's wrong? Shenro immediately turned around, saw the red wine spilled on Jiao Angzhen's skirt, and shouted softly, Angzhen, your skirt is stained. Jiao Angzhen looked anxious. Rura, what should I do? Aunt Bai. Shenro looked at Mrs. Bai, hesitated, and said, an xin skirt is stained. It will definitely be inconvenient to wear the skirt again soon. Can Aunt Bai take us to change clothes? Mrs. Bai doesn't want to pay attention to Jiao Angzhen. But when Shenro opened her mouth, she hesitated. Aunt Bai, as long as you have some clothes for her to change, you can change her clothes. An xin's clothes are so dirty that there is really no way to wear them. Aunt Bai, do you think you can? Shenro said it like this, and Mrs. Bai could no longer refuse. She nodded and said, okay, there are no women at home, so if you want to change, you can only change into my clothes. It doesn't matter, as long as it is clothes that can be changed, Shenro said immediately. Thank you, Mrs. Bai. Jiao Angzhen looked grateful. After Mrs. Bai gave her a cold look, she turned her head. When she spoke to Jiao Mian, her eyes immediately became gentle and loving, and her tone was also very gentle. Mian, you go find Yesi now, I will take someone there change your clothes. As she spoke, she called another maid over, take Miss Jiao over. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1215. Chapter 1215. But this is not a birthmark. Yes, ma'am. After Mrs. Bai finished explaining, she took Shenro and Jiao Angzhen upstairs to change clothes. Jiao Mian looked at the backs of Shenro and Jiaoan as they left, feeling that something was wrong. She clearly saw Jiao Angzhen pouring the glass of wine on herself just now. Obviously, it was she who wanted to soil the skirt. From the look on Shenro's face, she seemed to be aware of this matter. What on earth do they want to do with this? Although Jiao Mian still doesn't know what they are planning, she can feel that their target seems to be Mrs. Bai. They seem to be luring Mrs. Bai away. Asterisk. Upstairs. Mrs. Bai took Shenro and Jiao Angzhen to a guest room and brought out a piece of clothing that she rarely wore. After she handed the clothes to Shenro, she planned to leave. You can change your clothes and go down by yourself if you need anything, you can ask the servants at home. The implication is, don't find her again for such a trivial matter. Aunt Bai, I'm sorry to trouble you. After Shenro took the clothes, she handed them to Jiao Angzhen, hurry up and put them on. Well, thank you, Mrs. Bai. Of course Jiao Angzhen could tell that Mrs. Bai didn't like her. If it weren't for Shenro, Mrs. Bai wouldn't pay attention to her at all. She thought that Jiao Mian must have said something bad about her in front of Mrs. Bai. That's why Mrs. Bai dislikes her so much. Does that little think this is of any use? Soon, Mrs. Bai's attitude towards her will be different. By then, She, Chiao Angzan, will be the darling of the Bai family, and Chiao Mian at that time will be nothing. Mrs. Bai was extremely unhappy with Chiao Angzan because of Chiao Mian, and didn't respond to her words. She just glanced at her indifferently, then turned and walked out the door. As soon as he walked to the door, he heard Shen Ro's surprised voice from behind, "An Xian, you actually have a red birthmark here, and it's still in such a special place." Mrs. Bai paused in her steps. Behind her, Chiao Angzan saw Mrs. Bai standing at the door. A smile slowly appeared on her lips, and she said unhurriedly, "Yes, but this is not a birthmark." "It's not a birthmark, what is it?" "I heard from my dad that this birthmark was branded by my biological mother. She must have been afraid that she would recognize the wrong child in the future, so she branded this red mole as a mark." "What?" Shenro seemed surprised. "You mean, your current mother is not your biological mother?" "Yes, in fact, my dad is not my biological father," Jiao Angzan said, her tone lowered. While she glanced at Mrs. Bai, who was standing still at the door, she pretended to be sad and whispered, "They are my adoptive parents. My real biological parents, I don't know where they are yet." "What on earth is going on? I've never heard you tell me about it before." "I don't know. It seems that my father's boss was in trouble and was in danger, and he couldn't take me with him at that time. So they entrusted me to my adoptive father, who was also very loyal to his boss. From childhood to adulthood, she has always loved me as her own daughter. So, I think it doesn't matter even if I may never know who my biological parents are for the rest of my life, at least my adoptive parents are very good to me. I am no better off than those children who are with their biological parents." Difference. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1216. Chapter 1216. You are 1 year younger than your sister Chiao Mian. That's right. Your adoptive father and mother are so good to you, and they are no different from your biological parents. However, have you never thought about finding your biological parents again? Your father didn't tell you, where are your biological parents now? I have thought about it. Which child wouldn't want to know who his biological parents are? Jiao Angzan sighed, as if she was a little sad. My adoptive father told me that he had lost contact with my biological parents a long time ago, so even he doesn't know where they are now. Forget it, I won't think about it. I probably won't have any chance with them in this life. An Xian, don't be too sad. I'm sorry, I shouldn't ask you this. There was a sound of sobbing behind him. Mrs. Bai turned around in disbelief. Chiao Angzan's back was facing her, half of her skirt had been taken off, and her clothes had not yet been put on. Mrs. Bai immediately saw the red mark on her buttocks. She opened her eyes wide in shock, staring at the red mark. Shenro saw Mrs. Bai's reaction and walked towards Mrs. Bai pretending not to know anything, showing a curious expression. "Aunt Bai, what's wrong with you?" Mrs. Bai didn't say anything. She stared at the red mark on Jiao Angzan's buttocks for a while, then raised her head and looked at Jiao Angzan with complicated eyes. This mark, and what she just said. All signs indicate that this girl named Jiao Angzan is most likely her daughter. The location of the mark is very clear to Madame Bai. So as soon as she saw the mark on Jiao Angzan's body, she almost confirmed her identity. However, at this moment, Mrs. Bai didn't feel much joy in her heart. This is completely different from when she thought Chiao Mian was her daughter. At that time, she was filled with joy and expectation, and she wanted to take her daughter back right away. But now, she had no such idea at all. She didn't want to admit at all that the girl in front of her would be her treasure Kikai. But that mark and what she just said. She also told her son that Kikai had a red mark on her body. It is impossible for others to know. And by, you've been staring at an Angzan. Is there something wrong with her? Shenro said while winking at Jiao Angzan. Yes, Mrs. Bai, is there something wrong with me? Jiao Angzan reached out and touched her face with an uneasy look. No. Mrs. Bai was silent for a while, then turned to Shenro and said, Rura, can you go out for a while? I want to have a few words with an Xin alone. Ah. Of course you can. Don't worry, I'll go out first. I'll wait for you downstairs. After saying that, Shenro turned around and walked out of the room. After going out, she closed the door. Asterisk. Jiao Angzan was alone in a room with Mrs. Bai. She looked at Mrs. Bai with an inquiring and scrutinizing gaze. After all, she felt guilty, and her whole body became nervous instantly. Mrs. Bai, do you have anything to say to me? Shenro was not here. When Jiao Angzan faced Mrs. Bai alone, she was very afraid that she might have betrayed her. She did not dare to look directly at Mrs. Bai. Mrs. Bai looked at her intently for a while and asked calmly, just now you said that your current parents are your adoptive father and mother. Yes. Jiao Angzan clenched her fingers, her heart beating very fast. Mrs. Bai narrowed her eyes and said sharply, but as far as I know, you are 1 year younger than your sister Jiao Mian. Are you only 18 years old this year? End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1217. Chapter 1217 is different than expected. But you said Lin Huijin is not your biological mother. Jiao Angzan was startled, and when she raised her head, she met Madame Bai's sharp and scrutinizing gaze, and a layer of cold sweat suddenly broke out on her back. She stammered, she is indeed not my biological mother. I heard my adoptive father say that he was afraid that I would be found by his boss's enemies, so he sent me away to be raised outside. My actual age is 1 year older than I am now. I reported myself 1 year younger at that time because I was worried that my enemies would come to my door. After Jiao Angzan finished speaking, she couldn't help but feel relieved. Feeling like I have narrowly escaped death. Fortunately, she and Shenro had already guessed what Madame Bai would ask, so they had already thought of a way to respond. But even so, she was still so nervous that she broke into a sweat. At first, Jiao Angzan thought that Mrs. Bai might be the kind of rich and silly person who was easy to fool. But now, she has completely changed her mind. She was still careless. How can it be simple for a woman who was able to escape safely from that disaster and now become the glorious Mrs. Bai? However, as Shenro said, as long as she cooperates obediently, this matter will definitely be foolproof. Even though Mrs. Bai still has doubts about her now. As soon as the paternity test comes out, all her doubts will be dispelled. Thinking of this, Jiao Angzan felt a little more at ease. When she looked at Mrs. Bai again, she was not as nervous as before. She pursed her lips and pretended to be sad and continued, my adoptive father told me that my biological parents were in big trouble at the time, so there was nothing they could do. They took me with them. Since they trust him so much and entrust their daughter to him, he will definitely protect me and let me grow up safely and healthily. Mrs. Bai pursed her lips and said nothing. After asking this question, the girl in front of me seems to have no problem in every aspect. Everything has confirmed that she is most likely her daughter. But Mrs. Bai still doesn't believe it. In her bones, she was very reluctant to accept Jiao Angzan as her daughter. Her Zioki must be a very cute and kind-hearted girl. How could he be a vicious person like Jiao Angzan who would steal his sister's fiancé and also secretly suppress her sister at every turn? Even though so many facts have been placed in front of her, Mrs. Bai still feels that her daughter cannot be Jiao Angzan. If it was her biological daughter, How could she feel so disgusted? Instead, she has a mother-daughter feeling towards a girl who is not her biological daughter. At that time, when she had just seen Xiao Mianmian's photo, she had an inexplicable intuition that it must be her daughter. Later, when she met him in person, she liked him even more. Even before taking a paternity test, she had already determined from the bottom of her heart that Xiao Mianmian was her daughter. But when facing Xiao Angzhen, she didn't feel any joy at all. She was even thinking that if this was her biological daughter, then she would be really disappointed. She knew that her thinking was wrong. But she really doesn't like Xiao Angzhen. Mrs. Bai was silent for a long time without speaking. Such silence made Xiao Angzhen, who was originally sure that she would soon become the daughter of the Bai family, a little panicked. Why did the development of this matter differ from what she imagined? End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1218. Chapter 1218. It doesn't seem like you believe me. Now, she has revealed so much information, and the red mark on her body. Haven't Mrs. Bai thought about that yet? But if she had thought about it, how could she react like this? Amidst Xiao Angzhen's various uneasiness, Mrs. Bai was silent for a moment and finally spoke. She said in a calm voice, "Well, please put on your clothes. There are some things going on downstairs, so I'll go down first." After finishing speaking, Mrs. Bai turned around and walked out of the bedroom. Xiao Angzhen watched her leave just like that, with her eyes wide open and a look of surprise and disbelief on her face. Asterisk. Mrs. Bai came downstairs worried. Several of her best friends came over to talk to her, but she also looked distracted. The party has begun. Such a banquet is basically equivalent to a social gathering of high-end people. There are a lot of people who want to get to know each other, and the banquet hall is filled with laughter and laughter. Mrs. Bai searched around the hall and saw Xiao Mianmian standing in a corner. She was with Mo Yesi, and the two of them didn't know what they were talking about. She smiled so hard that the corners of her eyes were crooked. Mrs. Bai feels extremely uncomfortable whenever she thinks that her daughter is not Xiao Mianmian, but Xiao Angzhen. She has been looking for her daughter for more than 10 years. Looks like I finally found it. However, she was not happy at all. She only felt deeply disappointed in her heart. Shenro frowned when she saw Mrs. Bai coming down alone. After hesitating for a few seconds, she turned around and walked upstairs. Asterisk. Arrived upstairs, Shenro opened the door and saw Xiao Angzhen had changed her clothes and was walking out. She closed the door. "How is it? Has she believed that you are her daughter now?" As soon as Shenro saw Mrs. Bai going downstairs alone, she felt that this matter might not go as smoothly as expected, so she came up because she was worried. When she saw Xiao Angzhen's darkened face, her suspicions were confirmed. She frowned and said in a slightly unhappy tone, "What's wrong? Didn't it go smoothly?" "I don't know either." Xiao Angzhen thought of Madame Bai's reaction just now and said with an ugly face, "She doesn't seem to believe me." "Miss Shen, didn't you say that as long as I do this, she will definitely believe it? Am I her daughter?" "But, I didn't see any joy on her face. You know, she was questioning me from the beginning to the end." "Miss Shen, are you sure our plan can really succeed?" Xiao Angzhen was confident from the beginning. I became uneasy. She discovered that Mrs. Bai was not only not as easy to fool as she thought, but was actually a very smart woman. If the impersonation was discovered, she couldn't even imagine the consequences. At that time, Shenro will still be the eldest lady of the Shen family. The Bai family will not do anything to her. But what about her? Thinking about it, Xiao Angzhen turned pale and said, "I think Mrs. Bai is doubting me. Tell me, will she investigate me? If she investigates me, it's scary no matter how big the problem is." Shenro looked at her with disgust and said coldly, "It's normal for her to be suspicious. You are not her daughter to begin with, and you don't look like her. But no matter how she doubts you now, as long as the paternity test results come out, I won't doubt your identity anymore." But she didn't even mention taking a paternity test. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1219. Chapter 1219. When do you plan to have a child? Xiao Angzhen's eyes were full of uneasiness. She is still so cold to me. Miss Shen, I really think she is doubting me. She doesn't believe what I said. Then let her believe it. Shenro's eyes were full of impatience and irritability, and she felt that by asking Xiao Angzhen to cooperate, she was causing trouble for herself. However, she had no choice. Xiao Angzhen is the best candidate. So even if it doesn't suit her, she can only endure it. She took a deep breath, looked at Xiao Angzhen's uneasy look, suppressed her anger, gritted her teeth and whispered, "On the other hand, this is actually a good thing. While she doubts you, she must be right about your words. Be skeptical. If she wants to confirm your identity, she will definitely ask you to do a paternity test. Just go back and wait patiently. As long as the results of the paternity test come out, she will no longer doubt you. I've already said hello to you at the hospital, and there won't be any problems with this matter. Don't act like you're guilty, or you'll arouse her suspicion." Miss Shen, aren't I afraid? With Shenro's words, Xiao Angzhen finally felt a lot more at ease. She could see that Shenro was unhappy, so she immediately said with a smile, "But now that Miss Shen has said these words, I feel at ease. I will listen to Miss Shen and go back and wait for your notification." Shenro pursed her lips and said with cold eyes, "I don't allow this matter to go wrong. There's no point in you staying here anymore. Just leave when you get downstairs in a while. I'll go check with Aunt Bai. Asterisk. Second brother, sister-in-law, when do you plan to have a child? A corner of the hall. Talk to Xiaoqing. Lu Rao is sitting opposite Jiao Mian and Mo Yesi. Yan Xiaoqing looked at Mo Yesi holding Jiao Mian in his arms, feeling filled with emotion. He recalled what Mo Yesi was like before. At that time, he was always shy about women. If a woman gets too close to him, he will dislike her smell and tell her to stay away. But now, Yan Xiaoqing still finds it incredible to see how he wants to rub Jiao Mian into his body and loves him so much. The man who thought he would be a bachelor for the rest of his life turned out to be the first among them to get married. Moreover, fall in love and get married in one step. The first love was his wife, the first love was his wife, and the first time he fell in love was his wife, and the first time he fell in love was his wife. To be honest, although Yan Xiaoqing is used to being a promiscuous person, deep down in his heart he still longs for a stable and sweet true relationship. There is never a shortage of women around him. It seems that he is not lacking in emotion. But he knew exactly who the women who were following him were. If he didn't have the identity of the young master of the Yan family, and if he didn't spend a lot of money on those women, there would be a few women who would be willing to follow him sincerely. It's not that he doesn't want to find someone who can distract him. In all these years, he has not been able to meet one. If you can't succeed by focusing on your heart, then you can just keep focusing on your kidneys. Yan Xiaoqing felt that the relationship between Jiao Mian and Mo Yesi was now stable. They were married again. Mo Yesi was not too young anymore, so it was time to consider having a child. It's better to be born early. In any case, for a family like theirs, it doesn't matter when or how many children are born. Having a child makes the relationship between husband and wife more stable. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1220. Chapter 1220. Some pictures not suitable for you to see. Xiao Mian suddenly raised her head as she was about to give birth. Seeing that Yan Shaoqing didn't look like he was joking, she frowned. Just as she was about to speak, she heard the man next to her reply faster than her, "Whatever you want, your sister-in-law is still young, so she won't consider having children for the time being." Yan Shaoqing was startled and muttered, "But you are not young anymore. Haven't Aunt Mo or the others urged you?" Generally, people push for marriage when they are not married, and they push for children after they get married. Yan Shaoqing has been annoyed to death by his family members recently. He feels that he is still young and can still spend a few more years wandering around. But Yan's mother and the old man were already planning a blind date for him and wanted him to get married as soon as possible. He is not interested in getting married at all. If he could meet a woman like his sister-in-law, even if marriage was a tomb, he would still be willing to go in and lie down. But he can't meet him. He doesn't want to find a woman he doesn't like at all and get married casually. A man is in his 30s, and ACI is still several years away from this age, so there is no rush. Besides, I think ACI definitely wants to enjoy the two-person world with his sister-in-law for a few more years. What is the purpose of causing trouble so early? It's not with him. Are you trying to steal your wife? I guess ACI won't be happy, Lu Rao teased. By the way, ACI, I think you seem to have recovered from your illness now. Lu Rao shook the wine glass in his hand, stared at him for a while, and said with a smile, "How about I test it on you now? See if you are okay." Test? How to test? Xiao Mian knew what Lu Rao was talking about, and before Mo Yesi could speak, she asked with interest. "Sister-in-law, I think it's better for you not to know." "Well, there are some pictures that are not suitable for you to see," Lu Rao said in a pretentious tone. Xiao Mian blinked. "Pictures that are not suitable for me to see? What pictures?" "Lu Rao, sister-in-law, do you want to see it?" Xiao Mian. She saw that Lu Rao didn't seem to be joking, and became more curious. She pursed her lips and asked with a slight blush on her cheeks, "Really, is it?" Lu Rao said as he took out his mobile phone, "This is the simplest and most effective testing method." Lu Rao opened his phone and found Mo Yesi's WeChat account. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Xiao Mian and said, "Sister-in-law, you don't mind if I send other women's photos to ASI? It's purely for medical diagnosis and treatment, sister-in-law, don't be jealous." "Ah." Xiao Mian. Of course she doesn't mind. She even wanted to watch it. She was embarrassed to say this. Mo Yesi frowned and said nothing. Yan Shaoqing looked excited and was already rubbing his hands and waiting. "What kind of photos are you looking for? Are you in good shape? You can't keep good things to yourself. Lu Rao, please send it to me on WeChat first and I'll help identify it first one time." Lu Rao glared at him. Young Master Yan also has misogyny. Does he need to be identified? Yan Shaoqing met his disdainful gaze and nodded without any shame. "Well, I suspect that I have been suffering from misogyny recently. You happen to be here and help me identify it?" Lately, he had a headache when talking about women. Lu Rao. He ignored Yan Shaoqing and sent a few pictures to Mo Yesi's WeChat. He raised his chin and said to him, "ACI, I'm serious and I'm not joking with you. I sent the pictures to you. You take a look." End of this chapter.